To your officials, thanks. I'm no expert on this by any means, but a few people would have got on to us. And one of the questions is, and look, you might have gone through this because I haven't been in at the beginning of it. Was the inshore sector paid any form of compensation out of the Brexit adjustment scheme?
No, the tie-up scheme was available to the inshore sector, where they had quota and where they had quota for Brexit-affected species. But then for crab and lobster, which would have been the bread and butter in terms of the fish that's fished by the inshore sector, they're non-quota species, so they weren't impacted by Brexit in relation to quota. I did run those two schemes, which I've outlined a couple of times in relation to the 2,700 for under 10 metre boats and the 4,500 for 10 to 18 metres. But there was tie-up schemes available for the whitefish fleet, for whitefish quota. There was tie-up available for those. There was also a decommissioning scheme available for those boats for the whitefish fleet. Again, that was recommended to me by the task force. And the way the decommissioning worked was that while the level of quota stayed the same, adjusted for Brexit, by decommissioning a number of boats, those boats came out of the system, and it meant then that the remaining boats got to utilise the quota that was there, so it kept their quota at a sustainable position. So that's how the whitefish fleet were addressed under the Brexit Adjustment Reserve. And then in the pelagic fleet, which is your mackerel, your horse mackerel, and your blue whiting, that fleet, which is the much larger boats, there was no decommissioning scheme recommended for those boats, but there was a liquidity scheme recommended for them, so there was liquidity funding paid to those. Okay,
they would say, the reps would argue that when they be having talks with you about trying to get monies or discussions, my understanding is that were they told that they couldn't get compensation under the BAR scheme, and they would contend that other groups were able to get money under that. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, so, well, I mean, it would have been all dealt with within the Seafood Task Force, looking at the criteria that was there under the Brexit Adjustment Reserve. And as I say, you had sort of the three segments. You had the inshore fleet, which doesn't have any quota, and therefore didn't lose quota, and that's the smaller boats. You had the middle segment where there was decommissioning and tie-up, and then you had the larger segment where there was liquidity in recognition of the fact that, for example, in relation to mackerel, we lost 25% of our national quota in mackerel. And again, that was all fully considered as part of the task force as to what would qualify for the Brexit Adjustment Reserve. And listen, there's no doubt that boats in the middle segment, the whitefish fleet, and in the pelagic sector, the larger sector, would have got a lot more Brexit funding because they were fishing fish which were quota species and would have seen quota permanently cut. But when you come to the inshore sector, which is primarily based on non-quota species, crab and lobster, there wasn't any basis for paying funding directly there because it didn't impact. You could catch as much as you could catch there as long as it was available.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Chair.